It was a quiet evening when Thomas first received the message. He had just finished a long day at work and was sitting at his kitchen table, sipping on a cup of lukewarm coffee. The world outside his window was quiet, the only sounds being the rustling of trees and the distant hum of traffic. But as his phone buzzed on the table, something strange stirred in him. He had never been one to jump at every notification, but this one felt different. The message came from an unknown number, and the subject line read, "A proposal from the stars." Thomas blinked, his curiosity piqued. It sounded like one of those ridiculous scam emails or a joke from a friend. But something about it seemed oddly genuine. His thumb hovered over the screen, hesitating for a moment. Should he open it? Was it worth the risk of wasting a few seconds of his life? But before he could decide, he opened the message anyway. What he saw sent a chill down his spine. The message was simple, but its contents were anything but ordinary. It was a video file and a single sentence accompanied it. "Will you marry me?" The video began to play automatically, and a soft, soothing voice echoed from the speakers. "Hello, Thomas. I know this is strange, but please hear me out. I am not from this world and I need your help. I am asking you to marry me. You are the only one who can help me, and this is a matter of great importance." Thomas froze, his heart pounding in his chest. He wanted to laugh it off, to dismiss it as some bizarre hoax, but something inside him stopped him. The woman in the video was unlike anyone he had ever seen before. Her face was serene, almost ethereal, with piercing eyes that seemed to look right through him. Her long silver hair cascaded over her shoulders, and her skin glowed softly in the dim light surrounding her. She spoke calmly, but there was a certain urgency in her voice that made Thomas take notice. "I come from a distant world," she continued. "A world far from yours, and my people are in danger. I need you, Thomas, to marry me. It is the only way to save both our worlds. You are the one I have chosen, and I believe you can help me. Please, consider my proposal. Time is running out." The video cut off abruptly, leaving Thomas staring at his phone screen in disbelief. Was this some kind of prank? Who would do something like this? His mind raced with questions, each one more bizarre than the last. A marriage proposal from an alien? It was ludicrous, and yet a part of him couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more to this than met the eye. He sat back in his chair, running his hands through his hair, trying to process what he had just seen. He wanted to laugh, to dismiss it as nothing more than a strange fantasy. But the woman in the video had seemed so real. There was something in her eyes, a kind of intensity, that made Thomas wonder if there was more truth to this than he was willing to admit. Still, he tried to push the thoughts from his mind. He had a life, a job, and responsibilities. He couldn't just entertain the idea of marrying an alien woman, no matter how intriguing it might seem. This had to be some elaborate joke, right? Maybe one of his friends had hacked into his phone and sent him this ridiculous video, but as much as he tried to convince himself of that, the nagging feeling in the back of his mind wouldn't go away. The next few hours passed in a blur. Thomas couldn't focus on anything. His mind kept drifting back to the woman in the video. Who was she? What did she mean by saving both our worlds? And why had she chosen him? The more he thought about it, the more he realized that he couldn't just ignore it. Something about the message, the urgency in her voice, called to him in a way he couldn't explain. That night, as he lay in bed staring up at the ceiling, his thoughts kept racing. Was it possible? Could it be real? He had always been a practical man, grounded in logic and reason, but this was something entirely different. The thought of an alien woman asking for his help was so far beyond his understanding that it seemed almost laughable. But the more he thought about it, the more he realized that he couldn't just let it go. Then, in a moment of strange clarity, Thomas knew what he had to do. He couldn't ignore this. He had to meet her. He had to find out if this was real. And if it was, he had to know what she wanted from him. There was no turning back now. Whatever happened next would change his life forever. The next morning, Thomas received another message from the same unknown number. This time it was a simple instruction. Meet me at the old pier tonight. Come alone. It was a bold move, but Thomas was no longer the same man he had been the night before. The seed of curiosity had been planted, and it was too late to turn back now. He had made his decision. As he prepared to leave his apartment that evening, Thomas had no idea what awaited him at the pier. But he knew one thing for sure. His life was about to change in ways he couldn't possibly understand, and with that thought in his mind, he stepped out into the night, determined to meet the woman who had changed everything. Thomas's heart raced as he approached the old pier. The moonlight reflected off the calm water, casting an eerie glow over the desolate landscape. The only sounds were the soft lapping of the waves against the wood and the faint rustle of the wind through the trees. As he walked further, the weight of his decision began to settle on him. What was he doing here? What had he gotten himself into? He paused at the edge of the pier, looking around. There was no sign of anyone. No woman, no strange lights, nothing. His breath caught in his throat as doubt began to creep in. Had he made a mistake? Was this all just some twisted prank? He stood there for a few moments, uncertain of what to do next, when suddenly a soft, familiar voice echoed through the still night. Thomas. He spun around to find her standing a few feet away. The alien woman. She was dressed in a flowing silver gown that shimmered in the moonlight, her long platinum hair cascading down her back. She seemed to glow, not just from the light, but from something within her, something that made her seem both ethereal and powerful at the same time. "How did you find me?" Thomas asked, his voice trembling with a mixture of awe and fear. She stepped forward, her eyes locking with his. There was no mistaking the seriousness in her gaze. "I told you, I'm not from this world, and now you've come, just like I knew you would." Thomas swallowed hard. "What do you want from me?" He couldn't help but ask, his voice barely above a whisper. He had to know the truth. The woman took a deep breath and began to speak, her voice steady but filled with a quiet urgency. "I come from a world far beyond yours, Thomas. A place so far removed from Earth that it takes more than just technology to travel there. I'm not the first to arrive. My people have been coming for generations looking for someone who can help us. And I've chosen you." Thomas's mind spun with confusion. "Chosen me for what? I'm just a regular guy. I'm not some hero." He could feel his pulse quicken, as if his body was reacting to the intensity of the situation. The woman's eyes softened. "You don't understand yet, but you will. Your world, Earth, is in danger, and so is mine. For centuries, our worlds have been on the brink of destruction. My people's survival depends on a bond, a union between us, humans and aliens. And you, Thomas, are the key to that bond." He shook his head in disbelief. "You're asking me to marry you? Just like that? Without any explanation?" His voice faltered slightly, and he took a step back, his mind racing. She nodded solemnly, her expression unwavering. "Yes, but it's not just a marriage. It's a contract, a joining of our two worlds in a way that will protect both of us. Without it, the consequences will be catastrophic. Your world is already beginning to feel the effects. Strange things happening, things that don't make sense. And it's all because of a war that's brewing in the galaxy. A war that threatens both of our species." Thomas tried to wrap his mind around her words, but the more she spoke, the less sense it seemed to make. A war? Between aliens and humans? His voice was a mixture of disbelief and fear. "Not just any war," she replied. "A war that will tear apart the very fabric of reality itself. My people are on the brink of extinction. We've been fighting this war for centuries, but now there's a new power rising, something far more dangerous than we've ever faced before. And the only way to stop it is to unite our two worlds. You are the key to that union, Thomas." Thomas felt his knees weaken as the weight of her words crashed down on him. He had thought that this would be some strange, romantic adventure, but this was far beyond anything he had ever imagined. He wasn't just caught up in a relationship with an alien woman. He was caught in the middle of a galactic war, and the fate of both his world and hers rested on his shoulders. But how do I fit into all of this, he asked, his voice barely audible. I'm just a guy. What can I possibly do to help you or your people? The woman stepped closer, her presence overwhelming. It's not about what you can do, Thomas. It's about what you already are. You are human. Your strength, your resilience, your ability to survive against all odds, those are the qualities we need. Your species is different from mine, yes, but it is also what makes you powerful. It is why we chose you. Thomas's mind was spinning. He had come here thinking he was simply going to meet a strange woman, but now he was faced with a reality so vast, so incomprehensible, that he couldn't even begin to process it. He had thought he was ordinary, just another man in a world full of billions. But now he realized he was part of something much bigger, something that could change the future of not just Earth but the entire universe. The woman reached out and gently placed her hand on his shoulder. I know this is overwhelming, but you must trust me. Time is running out. The forces that seek to destroy us are closing in, and you are the only one who can stop them. Thomas stared into her eyes, searching for any sign of deception, but all he saw was determination. For the first time since he had received the mysterious proposal, he felt a strange sense of purpose deep within him. As terrifying as it was, he knew there was no turning back now. I'll help you, he whispered, his voice trembling. But I need to know everything. I need to understand what's really going on. The woman nodded, her expression softening. I'll tell you everything, Thomas. But first we have to leave. We don't have much time. With that, she turned and began to walk away, and Thomas followed, unsure of what lay ahead, but certain of one thing. His life would never be the same again. The walk from the pier was silent, save for the occasional gust of wind rustling the trees. Thomas followed the woman whose name he still hadn't learned, as she led him through a narrow trail that seemed to stretch into an unknown world. The landscape around them appeared normal enough, dense trees and a winding path. But there was something unsettling about the way everything seemed so still, as though the forest itself was holding its breath. They reached a clearing, and in the middle, a sleek metallic ship stood, hidden beneath the canopy of trees, almost as if it had been waiting for them. The woman turned to him, her eyes gleaming in the dim light. This is where we need to go, she said softly. Her voice was calm, but carried an unmistakable edge of urgency. Thomas looked at the ship in disbelief. You mean this is your ride? His mind couldn't comprehend what he was seeing. This was no ordinary aircraft. It was more like something out of a science fiction movie, sleek, silver, and impossibly advanced. It's more than just a ship, she replied, her voice quiet yet full of significance. It's our only chance to escape and to prepare for what's coming. She stepped forward, motioning for him to follow. As they approached, Thomas felt an odd sense of dread in the pit of his stomach. The closer he got, the more he could sense the weight of the situation. This wasn't just about marrying an alien. It wasn't even about saving her people anymore. There was something much bigger at play, a force he didn't yet understand. Once, inside the ship, the atmosphere changed. It wasn't just the cool metallic air that hit him. It was the feeling of being enclosed in something far too advanced for him to comprehend. The ship hummed softly around them, a quiet, almost soothing sound. The walls were lined with holographic screens, flashing with data that made no sense to him. Where are we going? Thomas asked, his voice tinged with both excitement and fear. We need to get to a safe location, she said. There's a facility not far from here, one that holds crucial information about the war. The war I mentioned, the one that threatens both our worlds. It's not just a simple battle. It's a battle for existence. He frowned. I still don't understand. What's really happening? Why do I have to be involved in this? She turned to him, her eyes filled with a mix of sadness and determination. Because you're the key to stopping it. You may not realize it yet, but the forces at play are much darker than you think. There are those who want to see both our worlds fall, and they've been working in the shadows for a long time. I had to choose you because you have something that they don't expect, a strength they can't predict. Before Thomas could respond, the ship's interior lighting shifted, and a series of holograms flickered to life. Each display showed detailed images of two worlds, Earth and the alien planet. Lines and connections were drawn between them, linking them in ways Thomas couldn't quite understand. The woman pointed to one of the displays. "These are the forces we're up against," she said. "There are factions both in your world and mine that are aligned with a dark power, a force that wants to control everything. They've been manipulating events from behind the scenes, pushing humanity and my people towards this war. The marriage, the union between us was meant to stop them, but it's more complicated than I thought." Thomas looked at her, his mind reeling. Manipulating events? How? Who's behind all of this? The woman hesitated, her gaze flickering to the hologram. "There are beings who are older than the stars themselves. They've been watching over your world for millennia, pulling strings, setting plans in motion. They are known as the Watchers. They have control over both human and alien civilizations. They feed off chaos and they thrive when worlds are on the brink of destruction." He could hardly believe what he was hearing. "So this war, this is all they're doing?" "Yes," she said solemnly. "But it's not just a war of armies. It's a war of influence. The Watchers have been using their power to divide our worlds, to set us against each other. The war you think is between aliens and humans, that's just the surface. The real battle is against the Watchers themselves, and they've been preparing for this moment for centuries." The information was overwhelming. Thomas's mind raced, but one question remained on his lips. "So how do we stop them?" The woman turned to face him, her expression hardening. "We must destroy the source of their power. The key to defeating them lies in the heart of both our worlds. If we can unite the forces that remain, human and alien alike, and strike at the Watchers' control, we might stand a chance, but it's not going to be easy. The Watchers have their spies, their agents on both sides. There are people in your world, powerful people who are already aligned with them." Thomas was quiet for a moment, processing everything she had said. His life had already been turned upside down since he met her. But now it felt like the whole world was turning in a direction he hadn't expected. He had thought that marrying an alien was the most unbelievable part of this story. But now it seemed like the real danger was something much darker and more insidious. "Who are these agents?" he asked, his voice tight with suspicion. The woman's face darkened. "They are everywhere. Some of them are in positions of power, politicians, leaders, even high-ranking military officers. People who have sold their allegiance to the Watchers in exchange for power, wealth, and promises of immortality." She paused, her gaze intense. "They will do anything to stop us, Thomas. That's why we can't trust anyone. Not fully. Even some of the people we thought we could rely on might be working for the Watchers. We are up against forces we can't even begin to understand. But together, we might have a chance." The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Thomas had no idea who he could trust anymore. The woman had asked for his help, but she had also warned him of betrayal. He had entered this situation thinking it was just a bizarre love story, but now he realized it was far more than that. It was a fight for the survival of both their worlds, and the enemies they faced were everywhere. As the ship began to accelerate, heading toward their destination, Thomas couldn't help but feel the weight of his decision. There was no turning back now. The hidden forces at play were much more powerful than he had ever imagined, and the battle for their worlds had just begun. The ship's hum grew louder as they traveled deeper into the unknown. Thomas stared out of the window, watching the swirling patterns of light that stretched before them. The stars outside seemed to warp and shift as if they were alive in a way that Thomas could hardly comprehend. His mind was spinning, each new piece of information adding to the overwhelming puzzle that had consumed his life. Alien worlds, intergalactic war, mysterious powers, he couldn't believe any of it. Yet here he was, traveling through the fabric of space itself on a mission that felt far bigger than anything he could have imagined. The woman, who had finally revealed her name to be Alara, stood by the controls of the ship, her eyes fixed on the path ahead. She seemed calm, almost serene, despite the magnitude of the situation. But Thomas could see the weight of it in her expression. This was no ordinary journey, and he was no ordinary man. "You've been quiet," Alara said, her voice soft but carrying a hint of concern. "Are you all right?" Thomas didn't know how to answer. How could he be? Everything had changed so quickly. One moment he was living his normal life. The next he was caught in the middle of a cosmic struggle that spanned across galaxies. "I don't know," he admitted, his voice quiet. "I thought I understood what was happening, but now, I don't know what to believe anymore." Alara turned to him, her expression softening. "I understand. But remember, Thomas, you are more powerful than you think. You don't have to have all the answers. You just have to trust in yourself and the choices you make. That's the key to everything." The ship accelerated further, breaking through a shimmering barrier. Suddenly, they were in the heart of a distant galaxy, a place that was nothing like the stars and planets Thomas had known. The colors here were vibrant, unlike anything on Earth, swirling in waves of purple, blue, and gold. At the center of it all was a massive structure, something so intricate and vast that it looked like it had been grown rather than built. The walls shimmered like liquid metal, constantly shifting and changing. "This is it," Alara said, her voice tense with anticipation. "The heart of the Watcher's power." Thomas's breath caught in his throat. He had expected a final battle, but this was something different. It was like stepping into the core of the universe itself. He couldn't understand it fully, but he knew one thing. This was where the fate of everything would be decided. As the ship landed softly on the surface, they were greeted by a group of figures. These were not the alien soldiers or warriors he had imagined. They were dignified, almost regal, standing tall with an air of authority that made Thomas uneasy. At the front of the group stood a figure who appeared to be both human and alien, a hybrid of sorts with eyes that glowed faintly and skin that shimmered in the light. "This is Zethar," Alara said quietly, her eyes locked on the figure. "He is the leader of the Watchers, the one who has been manipulating events across both our worlds. He is the true enemy." Thomas's heart raced as Zethar's gaze shifted toward him. There was no hostility in his eyes, but rather something colder, something calculating. "So the human arrives," Zethar said, his voice smooth and measured. "I have been expecting you." "Why did you do this?" Thomas asked, his voice raw with frustration. "Why manipulate everything? Make us fight each other?" Zethar smiled, a thin, almost sad smile. "Because it is in our nature to control. We are the Watchers, the guardians of the universe. We guide the fates of many worlds, shaping the outcomes to ensure balance. But some worlds are too chaotic to exist on their own. Earth, for example, is full of potential, but its people are divided. We cannot allow such chaos to spread, not when the fate of the universe is at stake." "But that's not balance," Thomas shot back. "You're forcing people to fight each other. You're taking away their freedom." Zethar's smile faded, and his eyes narrowed. "Freedom is an illusion. Order is the only true power. It is the way of the universe. If you cannot understand that, then you will never be able to stop what is coming." Alara stepped forward, standing by Thomas's side. "This is where you're wrong, Zethar. True power comes not from control, but from unity, from understanding. The people of Earth have the strength to overcome their divisions. We just need to show them how." Zethar's eyes flickered with a mix of amusement and annoyance. "You think they can change? They are bound by their nature just as you are bound by yours. You cannot stop the inevitable." "Then why are you afraid?" Alara challenged, her voice steady. "If you are so sure of your power, why fear what humanity can achieve? Why fear a simple bond between us?" For the first time, Zethar seemed to hesitate. His expression faltered just for a second, and in that moment Thomas saw it, the crack in the facade. Zethar wasn't as invincible as he appeared. The Watchers, despite their power, feared what humanity was capable of when united. They had been manipulating and controlling for so long that they couldn't imagine a world where humans and aliens could stand together as equals. "It's too late," Zethar muttered, but there was a tinge of doubt in his voice now. "You cannot stop what is already set in motion." Alara reached out and placed her hand on Thomas's shoulder. "We don't need to stop it, Zethar. We need to rewrite it. And the first step is showing the truth." With a single motion, she activated a holographic projection, an image of Earth swirling with energy. It showed the divisions between the human races, the wars, the hatred. But then, slowly, the image shifted. The world began to heal. People came together, despite their differences, united in a common cause. And at the center of it all was the bond between Thomas and Alara, the marriage that had sparked this transformation. "This is the future," Alara said softly. "This is what will happen when we choose unity over division, when we embrace each other, no matter where we come from." Zethar stared at the projection, his face a mixture of disbelief and growing concern. You think this is possible?" he asked quietly. Thomas stood taller, his voice full of conviction. "Yes, I do. Because if we can change, so can you. So can all of us." A long silence passed, and then finally, Zethar spoke. Perhaps there is something to your vision, but the choice is not mine alone to make." With that, he stepped back and the hologram flickered out. The Watchers, once feared as gods, were now powerless. The bond between Thomas and Alara had done what no weapon, no army could ever do. It had defeated the darkness that had controlled their worlds for so long. Thomas and Alara turned to each other, their hands meeting in the center of the room. It wasn't just a marriage, it was a symbol of hope, of redemption, and of the unity that had the power to heal not just their worlds, but the entire universe. And as they embraced, Thomas knew one thing for sure. The real battle had only just begun, and together they would face whatever came next. With courage, love, and unity, there was nothing they couldn't overcome.